to Stories with Sawyer. Today I will be reading Pyrus by A.J. Donnelly. Kharter would never forget his first visit to Yularith, the capital city of Gar. The bustling city infected him, energized him, and overwhelmed him with its size and majesty. The streets were easily 3 times as wide as the ones back in his home world of Pyrus. The buildings were all crafted out of Agar's obsidian material that made him feel as if he were walking through the night sky in the middle of the day. And the diversity of people skittering along the streets punctuated the fact that he was a long way from home. He was, in fact, on a high school trip to visit the Capitol building. His teachers had taken the class on a scenic route through Rypock Square, an immense open area with crystal monuments of famous people and historic events scattered throughout. Kharter was at the back of the group, just soaking in the experience with a smile from ear to ear. He wore the customary school wardrobe, long-sleeved tan shirt that laced up at the chest, khaki-colored utility pants and brown boots. He had bright orange hair with a spike in the middle and black markings that were barely visible below his collar. A particularly large monument piqued his interest. He paused to read the placard at the base. Hugar Vajrayu, commander of the Garcian fleet. Hugar led the Garcian military to victory in the ultimate battle of the Twin War. His bravery and service to the Mother World will never be forgotten. Kharter stared up at the burly figure of Hugar and wondered what it was like during the Twin War. Based on everything he had learned in history class, he was glad he was not alive during that time period. He turned back towards his classmates and noticed that they had put considerable distance between him. He knew his teachers would not be happy if he was caught so far away from the pack, so he dashed off after them. Out of nowhere, a wall of water erupted in front of him, and it blocked his path. The wall was over 3 meters high and surrounded him on all sides. He tentatively sunk his hand into the water, and the sheer power of the spray knocked his hand back over his head. His hand stung from the impact. I guess I'm not going through that. He shook his hand in frustration. He was about to call out for help when the wall to his left abruptly dropped. With no other option, he followed the path laid out before him. The water walls led him into an alley behind one of the massive buildings that bordered the square. It was narrow and dark compared to the wide open square he had just come from, but he could see the dome of the Capitol building gleaming at the under end of the alley. His boots echoed across the obsidian walls as he made his way down the passage. He looked up at the 2 buildings on either side of him and marveled at their height. They were at least 10 times taller than the buildings in the capital city on Pyrus. Glancing up at the skyscrapers, a faint wave of dizziness washed over him. He steadied himself against the wall and closed his eyes until the sense of vertigo vanished. Confident he wouldn't fall over, he opened his eyes and found his path blocked by a large creature. It had cyan-colored skin with black dots of varying sizes all over its body. It was completely hairless with a small protruding fin in the back of its head and muscular webbed feet. It wore a sleeveless plain white shirt with dark navy blue pants. Its 2 large brown eyes stared hungrily at him. Before Kharter had a chance to react, the creature attacked. A stream of water coalesced out of thin air as the cyan creature punched forward. The tree-trunk-sized stream of water slammed into Kharter's gut senses. He recovered just in time to see a wall of frothy water rushing towards him. He was able to throw his hands up over his face as the cascading barricade of water slammed into him full force. He was catapulted head over heels down the alley. He landed on his back with a grunt as all the air in his lungs rushed out. Laying on his back, soaking wet and staring up at the buildings, he wondered what he had done to deserve such abuse. He always considered himself a good kid, but why would anyone want to do him any harm? Or was this just a random assault in the big city? Perhaps this was an everyday occurrence for the denizens of Yularith. The alley walls began to move. Kharter reached to the ground to steady himself, and his hands dipped into a pool of water. He turned his head and noticed a bed of waves flowing beneath him, and it flowed toward the cyan creature. Instinctively he dug in his heels and palms in an effort to stem the tide, but he was too weak from the beating to slow it down. He was unceremoniously lifted off his back by a wave of water and planted face to face with the creature. Water then slowly pooled around his feet and swelled up his body as if he were being dipped into the ocean. He tried to break free of its hold, but his legs felt as if they were glued together. The creature stepped forward and smiled, its stub of a nose inches from Kharter's, its breath rancid, its smile filled with dual rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Now I watch you die," said the creature. The water worked its way up Kharter's neck. He fought to keep his mouth clear, but it was no use. Water rushed into his mouth. He choked and sputtered as the water continued to entomb him in a watery embrace. Holding his breath, he looked out at the rippling water at his assailant and wondered again why this was happening. As his vision blurred and darkened, he thought of his family and wished he could see them one more time and tell them how much they meant to him. A flash of green was the last thing he saw before succumbing to the darkness. Kharter was awoken by a slap to the face. "Ow!" said Kharter. He rubbed his left cheek. It stung from the force of the blow. Kneeling on one knee before him was a man who appeared to be in his 30s, with a face and head full of stubble. He wore a fitted black trench coat with a silver belt, black slacks, and shiny black boots. He had a scar along his right cheek and a gleam in his gray eyes. "Sorry about that, pup. We don't have the luxury of time," said Boland. "What happened?" asked Kharter. Kharter sat up. "You were about to die, and I saved you," Boland said. It all flooded back to Kharter at that moment. The walls of water, the detour through the alley, and the water creature. Scanning the area rapidly, he spotted it lying lifeless on the ground a few feet behind the man in the trench coat. "Is it dead?" asked Kharter. He pointed at the fallen creature. The man glanced back. "Not yet. I only stunned it." Kharter didn't know if he was pleased or saddened to hear that it was still alive. "Why did it attack me? What does it want from me?" "I was going to ask you those very questions," said Boland. The creature snorted and flinched. Kharter instantly backpedaled as the man reached a hand inside his trench coat and pulled out a muted black gun. The gun was trained on the creature's head, but it remained still, its eyes closed. Another moment passed before the man reluctantly holstered the weapon. "I have no idea why it attacked me," reiterated Kharter. He stood up, still sopping wet from head to toe, and brushed the wet hair out of his face. "I'm just a kid on a field trip." "You're from Pyrus," Boland stated. It wasn't a question. "Yeah, I'm from Pyrus. What gave it away?" The man stood up and was at least a foot taller than Kharter. "Don't crack wise, pup." "Sorry, I go. I'm going to go meet up with my class at the Capitol building, Kharter explained, and started towards the gleaming gold dome of the Capitol building. The man put his hand on Kharter's chest and stopped him with a gentle shove. That's not a good idea. Why not? Said Kharter. He was at his wit's end. He had been attacked, almost killed, and now this man was telling him he couldn't leave. He just wanted things to return to normal. This Hydrokaan wants you dead. Do you really think you'll be safe in the Cap Dome? That's a Hydrokaan? Asked Kharter. He was completely taken aback at the situation unfolding. Yeah, said Boland. Look, I don't know what's going on, but it'll be safer in the Capitol Dome with security guards, senators, and the rest of my class. Kharter slapped the man's hand away. You think a bunch of rent-a-cops, bureaucrats, and children can stop a Hydrokaan? The man chuckled to himself. Pup, you really have no idea what you're mixed up in. Do you? Asked Kharter. The man smiled at the question. No, but we're going to find out. Boland grabbed the Hydrokaan by its feet and dragged it into the nearest side alley. Kharter reluctantly followed. The side alley was even darker than the previous one. Kharter didn't like being in a dark alley with a Hydrokaan, even if it was unconscious. There could never be enough light when confronting a Hydrokaan in an alley. And for that matter, why had a Hydrokaan attacked him? He had read all about the war between Hydrokaans and Pyroscenes, but that was over a century ago. As far as he knew, there was peace between the two factions. Boland unceremoniously dropped the creature to the ground. The Hydrokaan grunted, but remained unconscious. Boland reached into his jacket and pulled out a small silver cylinder. He edged past Kharter and stuck the cylinder to the edge of the wall. A transparent veil of light emanated from the cylinder, essentially creating a see-through wall at the opening of the main alley. Boland edged past Kharter once again and knelt down next to the Hydrokaan. Wake up, said Boland. The creature didn't stir. The slap that followed echoed up the obsidian walls, making it sound as if 1,000 people were being slapped simultaneously. The Hydrokaan was awake now. It roared and gnashed its fearsome teeth in a rage, spittle flying from its mouth. Boland stood up and leveled his gun at its head. Shut up. The Hydrokaan quieted. Its breathing was now a low rumble which frightened Kharter more than the rage. Why did you attack the pup here? The Hydrokaan smiled but remained silent. Boland returned the smile. Listen, we can do this the easy way, or the fun way. Your choice. The smile vanished from the cyan creature's face. I was paid, said the Hydrokaan. By whom? Don't know. I'm sure this is difficult for something with such low intelligence, but I suggest you think harder before answering again, said Boland. I don't know who paid for the hit. So, someone put a hit on him. You're right for such an ugly thing. Boland smirked. He turned, grabbed Kharter, and ushered him further into the dark alley away from the Hydrokaan. You got anything you want to tell me? Like what? Asked Kharter. Like why someone would put out a hit on you for starters, said Boland. I have no idea. I'm not a super athlete. I'm not a brainiac. I'm just a regular kid from Pyrus. No, you're not. He peered at Kharter for a moment longer before stepping past him to resume his conversation with their captive. Do you work alone or with an organization? What does it matter? Growled the Hydrokaan. It doesn't, but I still want to know. I work with loam. faced Kharter with an expression that Kharter wished he'd never seen. It told him he was in deep trouble. "Step outside the alley," Boland insisted. "Why?" said Kharter. As much as he wanted to be away from the Hydrokaan and his rows of teeth, he felt more exposed in the main alley. "Because I need to take care of something." "What does that mean?" asked Kharter. "It means stop asking stupid questions and do as you're told." Kharter reluctantly turned and headed toward the wall of transparent light. As he walked through the veil, he turned and looked at the Hydrokaan once more. It was staring back at him with pure hatred in his eyes. Once back in the main alley, he turned to see what Boland was up to, but instead of the side alley, there was only a wall of black obsidian before him. For a moment, he thought he was losing his mind, but when he reached out to touch the wall, his hand shimmered through the light veil. Cool," said Kharter. He walked into the main alley and towards the dome building. No more than 10 paces in, he heard a gunshot from behind. He instinctively crouched down, waiting for an attack. When a hand grabbed his shoulder, he let out a yell as if he were set ablaze. "Pipe down, pup. You're going to get us both killed." "I just want to get out of here," Kharter said quietly. "Then let's go."